Pretty much since the beginning of this show airing, I felt like this could be Studio Trigger's best anime or one of their best anime. Kind of in a list of, when you think of Studio Trigger, you think of things like Kill la Kill, you think of things like A Delicious in Dungeon. And after episode 6, that opinion is only stronger than ever. I mean, this very well could be one of their, if not their magnum opus, their best of the best that they've done. It doesn't matter that it's adapting a manga. It doesn't need to be an anime original for something to stand out as one of, if not the best anime that a studio has adapted. I remember when I first brought up this whole concept in this conversation, people were like, well, it's based on a manga, it's not even their work. It's like, do you think they're just putting the pages on screen and doing nothing? They're not adding their own touch, they're not adapting the work? Like, it takes a lot to bring a manga to life. And an episode like episode 6, which continuously is going outside where you expect to see. When you think of mimic chess, they're funny. They're, big chest, big teeth, they try to eat you when you open them up. We've seen that before. They had like 4 or 5 different types of mimics that they showcase in this episode. But most importantly, the painting thing. It's not just about like, oh, we go inside the painting to eat the tasty food. They pretty much go where you most likely assume after he tries to remove all the fruits and veggies from the painting and it doesn't work. You can eat all you want in that painting, but it's not going to fill your stomach when you're outside said painting. And the idea of the story actually evolving with each painting and then having someone try to jump our ass, it's just the little ideas that you've seen probably most of these before in either video games, literature, wherever it is you're consuming it. I've seen mimics, I've seen jumping into paintings, but it's the slight deviation, that slight detour that these characters will take on their journey to save the MC's sister, and how continuously there's so much style oozing from all these pieces of animation or the simplistic art design that they'll go for those shocked, are you serious reactions. This is one of the most Studio Trigger feeling shows I've seen in a hot minute. The source material is not even made by Studio Trigger or anyone involved with Studio Trigger, but the way they adapt it, you would swear this is something that they would have come up with for an anime original idea, and that's what makes it, in my opinion, kind of standing out as potentially being their magnum opus for anime out there. Now, of course, I do have a full live reaction, episode 6 of Delicious in Dungeon over on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full and good thoughts as we watch today's episode, it's over there if you're interested. This was another great episode. I think, in all honesty, the 2 most creative things they've done is still the suit of armor. I still think what they did with that whole concept was just so fascinating, because usually with suits of armor it's like a ghost, or you can kind of follow the train of thought. It's not things in between the plates that are manipulating it as like a hybrid beast. But honestly, the painting's up there. It really is. Because what I like, there's a couple of things I wish I maybe would have been able to see with the paintings. One is, rather than the painting like spinning as he's in there, maybe we could have seen Leos like in the painting kind of evolving with it just on the outside. I think that would have been really fun. I get why they didn't, because the painting was moving as he was inside it, so they couldn't see anything. But I would have liked to see that. I also would have really liked to see potentially I like the fact that they did do something with it where that person who kind of jumps him, the elf, who's like ready to stab a fool's like, hey, you were there when he was born and you're here now, what the hell, you don't belong here. I do appreciate one character recognized, but I was kind of assuming that the baby who would then grow up would maybe be like, wait a second, why do you never age? Like, I was expecting him to maybe make a remark about it, or maybe he would get roped into more. I just kind of wish we had maybe 2 or 3 more paintings. Like, it would have been nice to have a little more between baby to adulthood to coronation, right? I would have preferred to see a couple more, but that's just me wanting more. I would much rather them leave me wanting more than do too much with that concept, but I could see the possibility for doing a bit more. The fact that no one commented on the rope though, that was interesting. They noticed he had a weird old suit of armor, like the armor didn't match their wardrobe, but the giant rope around his waist, nothing. No one even batted an eye at that. I'm like, interesting. Honestly, I thought he was going to lose his head at one point, because when they're trying to crown the dude, he just mows down on that food. Yeah, he waits till they're done, but like, he has no manners. He asks for seconds, and the glares he was getting inside that painting, I was like, he's not making it out of this one alive, or at least he's losing a hand or something. And honestly, it was really fun, and I like the fact that they went logical with the food. I mean, they literally ate an alien spunk-looking burger last week. They're gonna eat what they're gonna eat. But if you pull out and basically say, oh, we can't bring food out of this painting, then how would the food that you eat inside the painting stay in your stomach? It's kind of interesting though, because I always thought it'd be interesting if you had the ability to like rewind time, because then you could like eat as much junk food. You could literally get as drunk as you want. You could do whatever you want, have the sensation, rewind time, and then just not do that. And in theory, your brain would remember having that experience even if your body doesn't have it in it. And I feel like that's kind of the same experience that Leos went through, where like he got to taste this really delicious food. Unfortunately, it just didn't stay in his stomach, so he's still hungry. So it's like it's an interesting concept either way, but it was really fun because, I mean, the unfortunate thing about not having a lot of money when they started in this dungeon is that they didn't have a lot of preparation, and basically they're kind of hungry. Like, on one hand, they probably should preserve their food a bit more rather than eating that whole mimic at the end of the episode. Maybe save some of it for the road for lunch tomorrow. I don't know. But I guess when we're continuously doing crazy shit as we do, there's probably always something to eat in the dungeon. But what happens when they run into a really bad monster that chases them into a cave and they have to wait it out a couple of days, right? Like, they should be a little more prepared, but I guess if they did that, maybe, well, we wouldn't get as much insanity as we got. The thing that's nice, and I don't think I mentioned it for a couple videos, but I appreciate the fact that it's not just like Senshi or Leos being like the main characters with thought process. Like, Marcel as well as our boy Chilchuck, they do get their moments. Like, the fact that legitimately, Chilchuck is this character who could just be, like, this useful tool. He picks the locks, he does this or that, but it was like 2 or 3 episodes back when they first stumbled into the trap area, and then Senshi had to apologize, kind of like, you know, for throwing him into the deep end. We actually got to develop with him a bit here, and we did the same thing in this episode. Like, he's trying to find them some more food, does stumble in, he's very hungry, he's very sleepy, he makes some sloppy mistakes, but we get to see his thought process on how he analyzes traps and comes to a conclusion, while also learning a bit why he's so terrified of mimics. I'm really used to mimic chests always looking like they have a giant tongue and big teeth that are trying to gnaw on you. Maybe they have some eyes. I mean, that thing was basically a giant lobster crab looking beast inside, and there was multiple different types. There was this one mimic chest that had like this poisonous smoke that came out. They do different things with all of them, and I appreciate the fact that they say, hey, listen, if we're going to touch on these like classic fantasy elements from RPGs, video games, you know, books, manga, whatever, let's do our own thing and, you know, tap into stuff that maybe you haven't seen in a long time, or just do it in slight deviations that you've never seen. Like, hey, as he's running out because Marcel, being a good friend, even if she was sleepy as hell, realized he didn't come back, watches them, well, just crush that thing with a gate, and they eat some, basically some crab lobster. They didn't have any sauce to dip it in, but boy howdy did those lock-picking tools make for some good utensils. I felt for my boy when they butchered his tools like that. He's just like, no. At 2 different points, they say the word should. This should be okay, or this should happen. They're not very reassuring. They are very like, it should be okay, but our curiosity makes it worth the gamble. And it's like, you could break my tools, but it should be okay to use it for eating utensils. We should. It's like, how about we could, or we will be okay? Like, why does it have to be that ominous? But that's why I love this show. This was a very fun and enjoyable episode. They're continuing to bring the creativity. This is Studio Trigger being Studio Trigger through and through. The source material clearly is amazing, and you can tell this studio is putting their all into adapting it. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode of Delicious in Dungeon, though, down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we have a full live reaction over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today, we have Ryu Marco, Mark, Rikamatsu, Astro, Jeffo369, and Hako. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.